all. So today I'm going to be speaking on the topic maternal mortality ratio. So let's start with the difference between maternal mortality ratio and maternal mortality rate. So mortality ratio is defined as the number of maternal deaths per 100,000 live births, and mortality rate is defined as the number of maternal deaths divided by the number of women in the reproductive age, so that is between 15 to 49 years of age. Moving on to a global scenario, maternal mortality has declined by 38% between 2000 and 2017. So what's important in this slide is the 5 different categories given at the bottom. So we have very low, low, high, very high, and extremely high. So we see that Northern America, Southern America, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, China, Europe, all of these have a very low MMR value. So it's less than 100 deaths per 100,000 live births. India falls under the low category, and all the countries that fall under the high and very high category are in Africa, the exception being Afghanistan. So here, if we look at the table on the left, we see that the MMR point estimate for 2017, the world MMR point estimate was 211, and that of Southern Asia was 157. Sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia accounted for approximately 86% of the estimated global number of maternal deaths in 2017. And out of this 86%, Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 66% and Southern Asia for 20%. Then Southeast Asia accounted for 5% of the deaths, and the rest of the world accounted for 8.5% of the maternal deaths. Then with regard to the proportion of deaths to women of reproductive age that are due to maternal causes, so this is maternal mortality rate. In 2017, we see that this was below 10% in all regions and sub-regions, the exception being Sub-Saharan Africa, where it was 18.2%. And we also see that landlocked developing countries also have a very high maternal mortality rate. And also what's important to note in this table is that in Oceania, we see the MMR point estimate is 60, but Australia and New Zealand only account for 26 deaths. And the rest of the deaths, so the 360 deaths, come from the remaining countries in Oceania. So here we see the countries of Oceania. So we have Australia and New Zealand, which account for very few deaths, and all these islands put together account for the remaining deaths. Okay, so again, considering the proportion of deaths to women of reproductive age that are due to maternal causes, so again, maternal mortality rate, we see that in 59 countries, it was 1% or less, and all these countries are in Europe, the exceptions being Japan, Turkmenistan, and United Arab Emirates. The countries with high MMR in 2017 are all in Africa, South Sudan, Chad, and Sierra Leone. And the countries with low MMR are basically in Europe, again, the exceptions being United Arab Emirates, Israel, and Japan. Nigeria and India had the highest number of maternal deaths and accounted for approximately 1/3 of all estimated global maternal deaths in 2017. So in Nigeria, we see 67,000 deaths, and in India, 35,000 deaths in 2017. So trends in maternal mortality from 2000 to 2017, again, we see that maternal mortality ratio has declined by 38% between 2000 and 2017. In regions where the MMR was already very low, less reduction was observed, such as the 11% reduction in Australia and New Zealand, so from 8 deaths to 7 deaths. However, notably, one sub-region with very low MMR in 2000, which is North America, had an increase in MMR of almost 52%. So we see the number of deaths rising from 12 to 18 in 2017. But this is likely due to improvements in data collection, changes in life expectancy, and or changes in disparities between subpopulations. So what are the reasons for high MMR in Africa? So this can be divided into direct causes and indirect causes. So we see that direct causes are due to hemorrhage, puerperal sepsis, which is basically infection of the genital tract that can occur during labor, pregnancy-induced hypertension, obstructed labor, ruptured uterus, and complications of unsafe abortion. The three causes: hemorrhage, sepsis, and eclampsia. So eclampsia is high blood pressure, which can lead to seizures during pregnancy. All of these account for a vast majority of deaths, considering that even some of the cases of abortion or obstructed labor eventually succumb to either bleeding or sepsis. Then indirect causes, which account for 20 to 25% of the deaths, these are illnesses aggravated by pregnancy. So they include anemia, malaria, HIV/AIDS, heart diseases of the heart, lung, kidney, or liver, and ectopic pregnancy. So ectopic pregnancy is when the fertilized egg grows out of the uterus. Physical violence and accidents are not included in this group. Okay, so moving on to the case of India. This is an article from the Hindu and from July 2020, so this year, and it says that the Indian MMR MMR ratio has declined to 113, and this information is published by the Sample Registration System, SRS, so it's important to note this. And as per the Sustainable Development Goals, target 3.1 says that the countries should aim to reduce the maternal mortality ratio to less than 70 per 100,000 live births. Okay, so to easily understand or categorize maternal mortality in India, states are divided into three different categories: the empowered action groups, EAG states, the southern states, and the other states, which cover all other states, excluding the ones above, and union territories. Okay, so here the table on the right is released by the SRS in India, and we see that the MMR as per 2018 is 113. Assam has the highest MMR value with 215, and Kerala has the lowest with 43. And we see that from 2000 to 2017, India's MMR has been constantly reducing. So we have a 61% reduction, which would be even greater because our MMR has gone to 113 as of 2018. Okay, so reasons for high MMR in India. So delay in decision making. The initial delay occurs in inability to identify emergency obstetric complications which lead to delay in seeking care. This is especially dangerous in postpartum hemorrhage, which can lead to maternal deaths within hours. So it's often the case that people don't recognize that a situation has gone extremely wrong and the mother needs to seek external care. Then delay in travel, again, to move from a rural village to a reputed hospital or a place of health, there's a long distance to cover, so there is transportation cost and access to vehicles, which also is less. Delay in treatment. It is common practice to call a traditional dye in rural areas for delivery. Pregnancy complications that arise may not be properly treated by the dye, which again cause delay in getting the mother institutionalized. In several cases, family members take the patient to local doctors who are not able to recognize and treat the problem, and this further delays the patient from getting appropriate care. Then adherence to traditional rituals. Findings suggest that many a time women are discouraged to have adequate food during pregnancy. This was a case study done in Jharkhand, and this enhances the risk of anemia and associated maternal complications. And some pregnant women are also given locally sourced alcohol to consume to avoid pain, which is also not a good practice. Then unsafe abortions. Studies show that many people are not aware of abortions being legal in India, nor were they aware of its consequences. Poverty, so lack of financial resources to seek the proper care, and a lack of adequate health facilities and understaffed hospitals, so that is poor health infrastructure. And that's it. So these are just the references and the areas where I've taken my information from. Thanks.